running to Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
If you watch our show, you know how we feel about government and our financial system. So it's no secret we're a believer in diversifying your money with precious metals like gold and silver. But when it comes to buying precious metals, you need the right company in your corner. That's why we've partnered with the top precious metals company, Goldco. Goldco has helped people like you and me place over $1 billion in gold and silver and have earned their reputation through honesty, professionalism, and thousands of 5-star reviews. With a Better Business Bureau A+ rating, their track record speaks for itself. For those with retirement accounts, they're offering Vigilant News supporters up to $10,000 in free silver when coming to acquire qualified IRA accounts. This is your opportunity to protect yourself from our out-of-control government. Go to badlandsgold.com to learn how you could get started and request your free gold IRA kit. That's badlandsgold.com.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest Christmas sale ever. You get our brand new 6-piece My Towels for only $29.98, or rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper as low as $99.99. Or how about MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $24.98? There's something for everyone. Duvets, quilts, down comforters, body pillows, bolster pillows, and so much more. Well, I know MyPillow products make for the perfect Christmas gifts, so I'm going to extend my money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2024. So go to MyPillow.com now or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get huge discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you get our 6-piece towels for only $29.98. Or get your very own MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $24.98. It's our biggest Christmas sale ever. Get all your shopping done now while quantities last.
MyPillow is offering an unprecedented free shipping on all orders for this week only. Visit MyPillow.com and use promo code BADLANDS.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Rumble is down, so we're going to be broadcasting live on YouTube and Twitter for now. Maybe it'll come back up at some point, but if it doesn't, we're going to broadcast the show again tomorrow and then have an even more awesome show next Monday. So moving right along here, we got for our features today, IRS expansion led to 53% increase in prosecutions, according to a report. Al Gore says people have access to non-mainstream information threatens democracy, which is a funny thing. Wonder what his definition of democracy is. Yeah. What you got for us, Ryan?
We got the Soros scion himself, Alexander Soros, meeting with Zelensky as Wall Street is salivating over the post-conflict reconstruction of Ukraine. And then Mitt Romney says he doesn't see any evidence to authorize Joe Biden impeachment inquiry. We'll explain why Mitt Romney must not be able to read.
Welcome to Vigilant News, everybody. We are Vigilant News. I'm Justin. This is Ryan. We are the hosts of Vigilant News. If you would kindly take the YouTube link and share it around, we greatly appreciate it. We're going to try not to piss YouTube off, although it's kind of hard these days, so we'll see what we can do. But we'd really appreciate any kind of audience feedback you have today, because we got a really awesome show, and we'd appreciate that. So, okay, let's... You
want to talk about the Clay Clark deal?
Yes. Thank you.
I don't know if we're allowed to even mention his name.
I know, right? Oh, there goes the feed. Whoops.
There it is. Whoops.
Yeah. No. So we were invited to speak at the Times Free America event, which has been going on for, I think, like a couple of years now. They're pretty big. Lots of people show up. Lots of good centers for patriotism. Lots of good people there that ended up going there. We've been there several times. We covered the events a couple times as Vigilant News, and we are going to be there as Vigilant News, and also we're going to be promoting the Charles Whitfield Charity for Healing the Child Within, charleswhitfield.org. So really excited about that, and check out our live stream. We will be broadcasting that day, and around, I think it's 12-ish, we'll be going on stage and speaking. So really appreciate your support there. All right, so let's get into some rapids.
All right. By the way, I added a ton, so I don't know if...
I think I did. When did you add them?
I added them before I went to the bank.
I'm pretty sure I got it. Is this the first one?
This is the first one.
Okay, cool.
All right. I should have told you.
Yeah, that's all good. I think we got it.
All right. So, former Biden COVID official says a breach in a Wuhan laboratory could have triggered a pandemic. Isn't
Really?
that something?
Nah.
So it's actually the former White House National Security Council pandemic official, a guy named Dr. Raj Panjabi, has now publicly speculated that a laboratory breach in Wuhan, China may have actually been the source of COVID-19, which is hilarious because the intelligence apparatus assured us immediately that there is just absolutely no way it came from Wuhan, and that it's actually deeply xenophobic. I think what was it? Joe Biden said of Trump, or even suggesting that it leaked out of Wuhan or that China had anything to do with it, was nakedly racist or something like that. But now you got Panjabi saying that that's probably what happened. So if there's anything that this shows us, just like with the Hunter Biden laptop, the intelligence agencies can't seem to tell the truth.
Whoops. Wow, isn't that ridiculous?
So there's that. Here's this one I added. This is how we'll know. Okay, yeah, you're missing some.
I am? Okay.
Yeah, my bad. I added some and I forgot to tell him, so it's on me, folks.
That's okay. I'm gonna whip them later. Don't worry, everybody.
I'll be flogged.
So, let me pull this up here. Where should
you will like this one? It's gonna be.
Is it like from the one I just showed?
Down.
So like
yeah.
three.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
2 more were added. All right, 1 second.
Oh
no.
No, the House Judiciary you need to add. You need to.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Oh
They
yeah,
added
yeah,
a few
yeah.
in between that one. Okay. All right.
And I added a bunch at the end.
Huh?
Sorry,
It's not showing up. Okay, 1 second. Well, while we're pulling up these posts, let me go ahead and tell you that we've been posting a lot more on Vigilant News, vigilant.news, everybody. So go ahead and check it out. We're going to be posting a lot more awesome information. Ryan has just been killing it, getting out a lot of original content on there. So if you haven't already done so, go to vigilant.news, start making a habit of going there, checking it on a regular basis, and sign up. Let us know in the comments if you like it, anything like that. Okay, so I think I got him up at this point.
There we go. All right. So this one, coming by way of just the news, House Judiciary Committee subpoenas investment firms Vanguard and Arjuna Capital in an antitrust probe. So one of the quotes from Jim Jordan, who is leading this, says, appears to have Vanguard, speaking of Vanguard specifically, he says, Vanguard appears to have entered into collusive agreements to decarbonize its assets under management and reduce emissions to net zero in ways that may violate U.S. antitrust laws. So we don't know all of the details, but that is the general thrust of it, is that they violated antitrust laws in this net zero initiative of theirs.
I mean, the antitrust laws haven't really been enforced for a long time, so I'm glad somebody's finally taking a jab at that one. So that's great. All right.
Next one, we got Pissgate. Vivek Ramaswamy has embarrassing bathroom hot mic during X Spaces call. And, we can't deny the people the sound of Vivek Ramaswamy watering the commode.
I heard it. You can't really hear it, but the commentary is really solid gold. So we should play it. It's pretty funny. All right. So here we go. Oops. All right.
Promoting an optimistic, pro-human future that the science and evidence shows is real and that we need.
Gentlemen, I have to go.
Yeah, I just want to be sort of exactly. I want to be clear about my position. I'm super pro-human, and I mean all humans. Humans in America, humans in
somebody's got their thing
Asia,
open
and everywhere else.
Their phone open in the bathroom.
Is that Alex
Yeah, that's Vivek. Vivek, that's your phone, Vivek. I'm not able to mute you. Vivek. Perfect. Go ahead, Elon.
Sorry about that.
So, well, I hope you feel better.
I feel great. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys.
So it looks like we got one of the Krasinski brothers there too.
It looks like, yeah, Andrew
Jack
Tate,
Posobiec. I got Andrew Tate. So it's just like a grab bag of pseudo mainstream fellas.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Alrighty. So there's that. You heard it here first, folks. Ex-Fox News opinion host Tucker Carlson launches online TV network subscription streaming service.
Well, it'd be better than Cable Plus.
Yeah.
Or CNN Plus. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Or Fox Nation.
Yeah.
Here's
Right.
one. The UN backs first ever call for an end to oil, gas, and coal use. So no longer just conspiracy theory. The UN is actually backing this now. And then is this guy, if you scroll down, you see he's still taking his private jet all over the world.
He's just in the same position the whole time, like
Just yeah,
holding that double chin up. Because if he doesn't, it'll spill out and consume the world.
So there's that. IRS whistleblower verifies Hunter Biden received nearly $5 million for personal expenses from a Democrat donor. And real quick, let me just pull it up. Forget who it was, but I did mention it in the article. The IRS agents Joseph Ziegler, but who is it? It's a Democrat donor, Kevin Patrick Morris. So apparently, if you're Hunter Biden, you can get paid to do nothing all the time by people with money.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
So there's that. We got surveillance reform legislation proposed by the House Intelligence Committee is deceptive at best, destructive at worst. So when it comes to FISA and reforming FISA, there's a window that opens every 3 or 4 years. I don't recall, but that window is coming up. And instead of reforming anything, what they're trying to do is make it something that cannot be touched or altered until well after, supposing Trump wins, well after a next Trump second term. So they want to push it back out 8 years or something like that. So that way everything stays the same. And then they're also there's two bills, and they both kind of just expand the liberties that the security state can take.
Mm-hmm.
So something to be mindful of.
Yeah, this is one of these things, just to comment real quick, like this has such a massive impact on our culture, because basically, can you imagine if you had the ability to peer into everybody's personal life and get any secret you wanted, and then use that under the guise of national security to push your policies through, economic reforms, do blackmail, all sorts of stuff. We have basically one of the most sophisticated blackmail networks in human history, just rolling constantly behind the scenes. So yeah, crazy. Anyway,
good stuff. California budget deficit reaches a record-breaking $68 billion. So this is coming by way of Vigilant News. And there he is, folks, the man himself. The pick for 2024, the Democrats, although it's not official yet, Gavin Newsom. That's the kind of stuff that he has helped create in California. Record-breaking $68 billion budget deficit.
Wow.
Next, we have the staff of the Washington Post orchestrate a walkout amid contract dispute. So symptoms of the slow, agonizing death of the mainstream, maybe. I hate to partake in Schadenfreude, but get a little bit here.
Chris Paul had a tweet that he shared that I saw, and it was like, it's all these people being like, we're going to take a stand, we're going to strike for 24 hours. And, I couldn't help but think to myself, like, what are these, like, what's running through their mind exactly? Like, what do they really think 24 hours is going to do? And, it's nice that they finally got on the bandwagon of like trying to fight for free speech as people. So that was pretty funny.
Right. Yeah, I think they're getting, they've been having like this back and forth with the upper management for more than a year. So again, like a year and a half, they're complaining about pay and all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a fun one, which I suspect is a form of narrative seeding. The DOJ, as per the DOJ, Russian hackers employed a sophisticated spear phishing campaign against U.S. intelligence officers. So those same intelligence officers who just always know the absolute truth the moment anything controversial happens are just as susceptible to Russian spear phishing campaigns as any of us, I guess. But the funny thing is that this probably happens all of the time. So why now are we hearing about it? Is there a reason? Like, are they doing some kind of narrative seeding? We had the Iranian hackers last week, which we talked about, and now this week we have Russian hackers. Klaus Schwab promising there's a cyber storm on the horizon. So I suspect this is all just a little more narrative seeding for the fact there will be a big attack on our digital infrastructure in the next year, assuming 2024 doesn't quite go their way. Next, I just wanted to do a shameless self-promotion of my Substack here, The Political Stylings of Gavin Newsom. It's kind of a dive into some of the things he was talking about in his debate with Ron DeSantis, which was definitely the establishment shopping two candidates they want to see front and center. Gavin Newsom, he's just part of a machine in the West Coast that's existed for a long time. That includes the Pelosi's, Willie Brown, Feinstein, the Getty family, which is like one of the most powerful families in the Bay Area, and many other people. But Gavin Newsom is just a part of it. He's doctored in, and this article kind of gets into it. So if you're interested in learning more about Gavin Gruesome Newsom, check out that article. Next, this is funny. Netflix accused of race swapping after replacing investigators who took down Purdue Pharma with a fictional sassy black woman. Which is true. I think we watched the first episode of this.
Oh,
and it's just like the same sassy black woman you see in every. You saw her in Ted Lasso as the psychologist.
Oh, yeah.
The same archetype is used just everywhere now. And no, it's not. It's not like making America less racist. If anything, it's exacerbating racism when you just take real life people and turn them into black women. Right. You know, and it's kind of like shitty to black women. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Oh, we'll give you, some other race and gender's achievements. We'll just say they were yours. You know what I mean? Like it's demeaning in that way too. It's like all around just kind of effed up. I'm usually like when it comes to fiction, I don't care. I watch Neil Gaiman's Sandman on Netflix. I think it's a literary achievement, the original. And in the Netflix version, they race and gender swapped like everybody. And you know what? It didn't really bother me too much because it's fiction. You know, you're allowed to take liberties like that. But this is like real people who did a real life achievement, and they're totally flipping the script. It's ridiculous.
I mean, plus it's like it's not like they do it all across the board. It's not like they're swapping characters. It's not like they made Martin Luther King a white guy or an Asian guy or anything like that. So it's clearly one-sided. And
you can answer that. It's okay.
Yeah, sorry, I got a phone call coming in, guys.
Yeah. Just hold on a second.
But yeah, so it's one-sided, and then it's degrading. It's like, as an actor, I'm sure when you get chosen for your skin color, you feel really good about your acting ability at that point too. So
maybe they do actually. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway.
Lastly, we have an article I thought was worth throwing in here from Expose News. Yuval Noah Harari discusses the creation of a massive class of useless people and what should be done with them. Wow. Unfortunately, there's a couple of videos in here. Unfortunately, they're a little longer than we normally would like, so we're not going to play them. But the link is in the show notes, and you can go check this article out on your own if you care to.
That's right. Don't forget, you can check the description for the show notes, which are on Vigilant.news, or you can go right to Vigilant.news right now and check out the show notes and all the amazing articles that Ryan's been writing. All right, so let me jump in here. Where should I start? I'm a little discombobulated. Okay, Frasier. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. Kelsey Grammer.
The Grammer. Here we are. All right, so this is coming out of Modernity News, which is Paul Joseph Watson's new outfit, by the way. I think he just rebranded to get back in the game because, the censorship crowd is always on him. Not a bad idea. So we got Frasier, the star Kelsey Grammer, not allowed to talk about support for Trump. So there you go. Even a man in Hollywood is not allowed to talk about support for Trump. I mean, that's no surprise, obviously. That's anyone who's wanted to talk about Trump can't do so. I was actually just surprised that Kelsey Grammer actually supported Trump. I just assumed that he was just another rabbit foaming at the mouth.
Well, do you remember how he recently came out as Christian?
I don't actually.
He did, and that's why he was in the Jesus Revolution. Yeah, we watched. Maybe you didn't see it, but a clip of him on some late night talk show where he's talking. It sounds very Christian. The things he was saying. Yeah, that's kind of what I inferred. So that was interesting, and then now seeing this, I see the trajectory that he's going on. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It's nice to see. Not all of the people that I saw when I was a young person have sold their soul.
Just most.
Yeah, exactly. We got religious leaders join UN, World Economic Forum, to push global climate agenda. And this is like no surprise, but this is one of these things I wanted to emphasize because, it's not necessarily easy to know who's on the side of truth and who's on the side of the New World Order, so to speak. But there's some pretty good examples that you can cite. And I think one of them is the climate agenda. One of them is the healthcare agenda, the vaccine agenda. There's a lot of things that you can do this. You can say, well, is a person like a card-carrying member of the cabal who's totally in on the grift, who knows that the vaccines or anything like that are going to potentially cause problems? Not necessarily, but if they're at the very least, they don't have enough discernment to see what might have happened over the past few years, and that's a pretty good sign. Certainly the climate agenda, I think, is a pretty big one. At least they're getting duped. We got Melania Trump floats Tucker Carlson as Don's running mate. So that would be interesting. That would probably be quite the ticket. I don't really see it happening. It's probably one of these, like, let me say something to get a feel for where the political landscape is by putting something out there.
Also, I think the original people who were floating this around were mainstream media folk. I don't remember who exactly. Maybe it was the Daily Mail or something like that. But Glenn Greenwald was talking about it. He's like, oh, so they just made this story up. And basically now it's getting floated around.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, by the way, real quick, I wanted to mention about the cyber attack stuff we were just talking about. Ali sent a article over showing that, okay, so there was the Iranian cyber attack, then there was these Russian hackers, and now she sent over an article from the Washington Post. China's cyber army is invading critical U.S. services. So it's not just a slow narrative seeding. It seems to be like a torrential downpour of cyber attack stories.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, as we know, our good old loaded Klaus Schwab has been banning that. The guy's ability to predict events is pretty striking. And thanks, Allie, for sending it over. Really appreciate it. All right. So moving right along here, we got at least 6 suspicious activity reports were lodged by banks with Joe Biden's residence listed, according to a senator.
And we'll get more into this on my my feature.
All right. Private emails reveal Fani Willis wanted to jail Trump and his top allies charged in bogus RICO case. No surprise there.
Yeah, I can't say that's very surprising.
But I mean, again, election interference, that kind of stuff. Like, there's a measure that we can make. If I haven't released it yet, but I'm producing some material, probably going to be a book that is going to lay out, in my opinion, a very clear ruler or measure for what constitutes fair elections and not. And what we have today is very far from free and fair elections. And you can actually listen to when I was on Why We Vote a couple weeks ago with CanCon, Brian Lupo, and Ash America. We talked quite a bit about it. We got Joe Biden enlists Hillary Clinton to help sell his reelection bid. I mean, just look at that picture. Like, who does this? Like, what are these guys, like ex-lovers or something like that? Like, come on.
Well, he seems more into it than she does.
Certainly.
Can you feel my heart on?
I know, like, come on, could you get any closer? Like, yeah. So.
It's
a little saucy. So anyway, Ramaswamy sheds light on the climate cult's plot to steal land from Americans. This is a quick clip. He's on Alex Jones, and Alex Jones is back on Twitter. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment.
Give us 2 minutes on the climate cult. Extra info on what you said last night.
Yeah, and that was supposed to be a general closing statement, but I was so disappointed they didn't ask about the climate cult once that I just said, forget my closing statement. I want to talk about this. The climate cult has nothing to do with the climate. That's why one of the many reasons why it is a hoax. The real answer is this has to do with letting China catch up to the United States, using multilateral institutions to impose these emissions caps on the U.S., and a lot of people making money as middlemen along the way. I'm talking to you. I happen to be talking to you from northern Iowa, a rural area where I am right now. We flew up here after the debate. Right here, Alex, they're building a carbon capture pipeline across farmland in this state. I've met innocent farmers who don't want that pipeline built across their land. There are real dangers and risks associated with it. One of those in Mississippi had a leak and exploded, and that actually sent a bunch of people to the hospital. They're capturing carbon dioxide from ethanol plants and building a pipeline across. You know what they're now threatening to use with those farmers is eminent domain. So think about that unconstitutional violation, that World Economic Forum vision that you have no property. Well, now they're bringing that to the backyards of even Iowa farmers in the United States, where they are saying, hey, we're going to use eminent domain by hell or high water if it's your property or not. And I just think that's wrong. It's unconstitutional. The only legal justification for eminent domain is if they say it is necessary for a public use. But then if you accept that fighting carbon dioxide emissions is necessary, that meets the constitutional standard for what's required for eminent domain and seizing your property, then next you know what's coming. Come and take your gas stove. Leave a $50 check in your mailbox.
Oh, listen, they're already doing it. It's a total.
There you go. That's that. And on, you know, he brings up a really good point. Eminent domain is a very, I think, a pretty clear-cut example of malicious use of law. And it's not really necessary, but there are cases to be made where it is necessary. So it's one of these dicey ones, but I definitely think that's not a valid use. Like if you're going to claim that you as a municipality, a state, a county have the right to take somebody's private property, you better make damn well sure that it's actually necessary. And you better make damn well sure you actually make an effort to bring that person on board and convince them that it's necessary. That's what should happen. It shouldn't just be like, oh, hey, can you give us our land, and some letter that, you know, has no humanity to it. And then when they don't immediately say yes, you just throw the book at them immediately, which is kind of what happens these days. All right. So here we got Democrat porn star Susanna Gibson of Hot Wife Experience plays victim, lashes out at Republicans after her election loss. I mean, I know the publicly acceptable viewpoint here is to shame her for her lasciviousness. And it's not an unkind, or it's not an inappropriate thing to do. That being said, especially considering what we know about adverse childhood experiences and stuff like that, it turns out that a lot of people who get into porn, who get into prostitution, who become strippers, who become drug addicts, almost all of them have troubled childhoods. And so this is a kind of double whammy, nasty situation here. So, all right. I will not be testifying on Monday, says Trump. Cancel his scheduled testimony, slams New York investigation as election interference witch hunt.
Accurate assessment, I'd say.
Absolutely. So that's good. We got oh yeah, I already did that one. Let's see. China harvests DNA globally from pregnant women and fetuses, according to Technocracy News.
That's a good site. I pull from them a lot when I'm writing up my pieces on the burgeoning technocracy.
Yeah. And, you know, this is, you might be thinking, oh my God, China's been doing that. That's awful. It's the U.S. government is doing it too. It's, you know, part of the reason they want people to do 23andMe and all this is because in the legal disclaimers and the things that you have to sign for that is you're giving them permission to use your biological material. The same thing is true for when you have children in hospital. You give them permission to take your biological material and to do all sorts of stuff with it. And if you're somebody who believes in circumcision, which I personally do not, you're also giving them permission to take your child's very important part of their body and use it for whatever purpose they want.
Controversial take. And this is a show that's going to have a few controversial takes. I promise you that. Yeah. And not to diminish the threat that is China, but I suspect the Western establishment uses this giant boogeyman of China that, especially in the conservative mainstream establishment, you know, they kind of hide behind it because everything that China's doing like this, we're doing too. It's not to benefit the citizens. Just like TikTok, people want to be like, oh man, TikTok, the China's spying on us, but you know, the Western establishment basically dictates what TikTok can and cannot do. And usually it's, you know, silence any kind of dissent, hide the Osama bin Laden letter. You know, there's more nefarious Western powers at work in TikTok than you might suspect. But I think they hide behind China a lot. Not to give China a free pass, obviously, you know, atrocity after atrocity from China, but
no, you're right. I think you're spot on. And it goes to show you that kind of like Five Eyes, you know, like it's a red herring, basically, to put it simply. Like China is the big boogeyman they want you to focus on, not realizing that rammed up China's ass is the same arm that's rammed up our ass, you know, so great point.
I like that imagery.
I know, right? I figured you like that. Yeah. There's another image that's really happy for everybody. Alex Jones is reinstated on X, and David Icke thinks it's all a big conspiracy.
Interesting. Is there does he get into it?
He does. He does.
Is there there's probably a longer clip.
I don't know if there's a video. I think he just shows the tweets.
Some tweets.
Maybe he'll produce a hilarious Paul Joseph Watson
So
take.
it's like, you know, David Icke and Alex Jones were the two big conspiracy guys that some people think were all plants that existed to fill the vacuum that was left behind by Dale Cooper. Rest in peace.
Yep.
And so it's funny. So what is David Icke have to say?
Okay, let's get into it here. So here's David Icke saying, of course, Alex Jones is back on Twitter/X. As I have been writing about here, the poll and waiting for good Elon's pronouncement has all been a game to hijack your perception and that of the mainstream alternative media. Ma'am, you are being had, people, but most will never get that.
Maybe.
Hey, it's a valid supposition. The facts are in alignment with the claims, and the logic is sound. But the question is like, well, is that what's really happening here? I'm not necessarily sure that's what's happening. And then what's the end game? I suppose the end game is to like create distraction, draw attention away. Possibly. This is what Paul Joseph Watson has to say. Let me pull it up on Twitter.
Didn't Paul Joseph Watson used to work for InfoWars?
If I remember correctly, he did. Or maybe it was, I know he did Prison Planet, and I don't know if that was like under the InfoWars banner, but something like that. Yeah. So this is what Modernity News is, Paul Joseph Watson, if I remember correctly. You've been a regular guest on the Real Alex Jones Show, allowed to say anything you want for 2 decades plus. You also have a dedicated channel on his platform. So by your own logic, you are also a mammy. You're also paying Elon Musk for X Premium because you have a blue check. Presumably, you can monetize your account and make a living here. Not everything is a conspiracy. He might have a valid point. I don't agree with everything that anybody says, and certainly David Icke has got some takes that I'm kind of like, But oh wow, he goes quite off on all that. But
is that Paul Joseph Watson's response? Oh, David Icke.
This is David Icke really kind of getting into
Holy
it.
smokes! It's like he's even mentioning what's her name from the Dutch Farmers, the spokesperson there.
He does. I guess since we're on, let's go.
Okay, so it seems like he's saying that Musk, Carlson, Rogan, Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, Russell Brand, and the woman who is the spokesperson for the Dutch Farmers are all controlled opposition.
I guess. I mean, this is one of these things. It's like, please provide substantiation. If you're going to make a claim and actually have me take you seriously, do more than just type words into a Twitter post and hit send. Like, try to provide some kind of argument as to what the hell's going on, other than just painting all these people with the same brush. I don't know exactly. This is my own conspiracizing, I guess. But is it possible that Ike is a little butthurt from not being taken seriously?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So there you go. I'll let you guys continue to read that rant on your own. Here, this is an interesting one. We got another from Modernity, Paul Joseph Watson's outfit. Cut new Argentinian president to sign Paris climate agreement after calling climate change a socialist lie. So apparently, Javier Milei is about turns as he commits to Paris climate agreement. I'm not really sure to what extent that, if we can just assume that that's true, then maybe that is the case. Maybe he is going to sign this thing. If that is true and he's just going to totally sell his country out to the climate change agenda, then either he's in on it or he's been duped and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And to the second point, nobody's omniscient. So, we got to be careful and not want to, throw this guy under the bus because he potentially made a mistake. That being said, we got to be vigilant and we got to ask our questions and be like, dude, what the hell are you doing? You got your head up your ass? Like, what are you thinking? The climate change thing is a giant hoax. But maybe he's like got a whole Trump play on his hand. Like he's doing some kind of kayfabe thing. And, this is all part of that. I have no idea.
Maybe he's being threatened behind the scenes, It's hard to know what's going on with these things.
Maybe, the other thing too is like, if he does agree and then he gets an opportunity to kind of see what that's all about, you can gather intel and then he can expose it later, maybe. I'm not sure. There's a lot of ways you can play this thing. So.
Yeah, it could be that his main focus is on the central bank and all that angle, and that he doesn't really know a whole lot about the climate change stuff. But still, if you're going to be president, you got to have advisors that are hip to each and every different aspect. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
My suggestion to you, Javier Milei, is to watch a YouTube channel called Suspicious Observers. He does a great job breaking that down. And one of many. All right, here we got, this is an interesting one, came out today. Official Navy images reveal UFO encounter in the Arctic Sea.
Is that the guy who got his hands melted off? Or
oh, man, I'm not sure.
Peter Schneider or something like that? Paul Schneider? I don't think so. It just looks a lot like him.
I'm not sure. But these photos are kind of interesting. They look like pictures of actual printed photos. Of course, I'm not saying they're real necessarily, but the main reason I wanted to share this was that this whole idea of UFOs has become more prominent recently. And, I've always suspected, even when I was in the UFO crowd, that, the UFO topic was being used as a way to steer public opinion in a certain direction. It certainly has panned out, I would say. All right, who we got? Elon Musk says he would rather go to prison than restrict free speech on Twitter.
Unless it's speech that's critical of Israel, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, so, this is why definitions matter. He said he's a free speech absolutist. My question to him is, how do you define free speech and what does absolutist mean? Because if your definition of free speech absolutist is, well, I'm all for free speech unless X, then you're not a free speech absolutist. You're something else. So there's a much longer conversation we can have about all this, about what is free speech, should it be restricted, all that kind of thing. I personally have the opinion that free speech is free speech. God gave us the ability to open our mouths and say stuff, and people are going to do it whether you restrict it or not. What we should really do is create intellectual guards and teach people how to critically think, so when people say stupid shit, they don't do stupid shit because they know how to think properly.
Yeah, exactly. Not allowing somebody to say something in the public square, that idea, that belief is just going to fester in the shadows if it can't be, debated in publicly, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And if his justification for the censorship that he has done, that got the ADL to pat him on the head, was because the pro-Palestinian accounts, which weren't all calling for genocide of the Jews, even though that's the angle. But it's okay for supporters of Israel to say flatten Gaza, make it a parking lot and all this. It's just like there's got to be some kind of, I don't know, sense of fairness there, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't seem like free speech absolutism to me.
Not at all. Yeah, not at all. I mean, there's rank hypocrisy, as you just pointed out. It's a perfect example. So, all right, coming up the last couple here, we got Americans are being scammed in a more sophisticated ways than ever. So this is, you've probably seen these before. I just want to let you guys know that these things are happening. So you got phishing scams. My nephew is in jail. Your package is at customs. Your bank account has been hacked. An iPhone was ordered in your name. Your mother is in the hospital. I mean, my inbox is loaded with these things because I've got several websites. And I don't pay for the stupid privacy thing. I just get loaded with all sorts of scam emails. And yeah, they are sophisticated. And one point I wanted to mention about this is this conforms with what I think is an oft not recognized aspect of the globalist agenda. The globalists, for a very long time, whether we're talking about the New World Order types, the Jesuit types, the Templars, I mean, that goes way, way back. The Machiavellian types, their basic MO is to seed as much doubt in the good faith and trustworthiness of mankind as possible. Because the more you don't trust your fellow man, the less you're going to be able to create the things that sit on top of trust, which is like prosperity, healthy societies, all sorts of things like this. So, and that's part of their agenda. So you can imagine, I'm sure they have a system where the more they ramp up the phishing scams, the more people do not participate in the economy, the more inflation goes up. Because one thing Martin Armstrong has been brilliant at demonstrating, which a lot of people often miss, is it's not just printing money that is the problem that causes inflation. That's just the first step. Once the money's been printed, it has to get distributed out. And the banks receive all this money, and then they are the ones who have to issue loans. So they could, as we saw during the 2008 crisis, there were trillions of dollars that got printed, but inflation didn't really happen as crazy as much people think because it was siloed. What really causes inflation is when people, or contributes to inflation, I should say, is the lack of trust, the destabilization of society. That prevents people from working. It creates artificial demand because there's not enough people doing things, producing things. And then the people who do have the ability to spend money can charge what they want. And the people that have the goods and resources can charge what they want. And that's what causes the rise in inflation and things like that. All right, here we go. We got poll shocker. 20% of Gen Z think Holocaust is a myth. 28% believe Jews have too much power in the United States.
And they, of course, and shout out to Floyd Brown. He's been on the show many times. The Western Journal is a great publication and all, but this is indicative of what I see in Con Inc. and the greater independent media is that there is a definite bias in favor of Israel. And we'll get into that plenty later on. But maybe Gen Z is a little right. I mean, there's plenty of reason to suspect that or to even be, I don't know, even the slightest bit critical of how much power Israel in the Israel lobby wields in the United States and around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we really care about the truth, justice, and the rule of law, we have to be allowed to ask all questions that need to be asked. And if we try to silo or prevent people from asking reasonable questions, then we're not going to be able to expose the scams. And I'm sorry, but unfortunately, there are very insidious people that wear other cultures like a skin to do what they want to do to affect all sorts of nasty things. And I'm not necessarily talking about Judaism. I'm talking about every culture, whether it's the trans agenda, whether it's blacks, whether it's Latins, you name it. The cabal is an equal opportunity exploiter. We'll put it that way.
And believe us, we know Islamic extremism is also just as reprehensible, but you don't have people completely ignoring Islamic extremism like you do Israel.
That's right. All right. So last one, a little good news for everybody. A couple plants 2 million trees in 20 years to turn destroyed forests back into a wildlife haven.
Nice.
So here we go. This is a picture from 2001.
Yeah.
And look at that.
This is the story that I swear comes back around every year because I'm
right?
pretty sure we've shown this on Stillness in the Storm like a few years
I think so.
ago.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just as remarkable every time.
It just betrays the tree hugger inside of me. And, and I wanted to use this as a springboard to just mention one little fun fact. If you study, oh God, what the heck's his name? Victor Schauberger. Victor Schauberger, he's famous for recognizing the kind of anti-gravity effects of trout swimming upstream. But before that, he studied nature and water as it moves through nature. And one of the things he realized is that an area that has sufficient tree cover will retain 6 times the amount of water that it normally does. And if you really want to stop the prevalence of flooding, then you should plant a bunch of trees everywhere because that basically eliminates the problem for the most part. And which is interesting that in a lot of areas we have, and this is not a new thing, deforestation has been happening for a long time. There's a lot of excuses for why it happens. It's for farmland. It's because we need to build battleships. It's because we need wood, all sorts of stuff like that. But it's not like we don't know how to plant a tree, So I would argue that the fact that we have cultures like the English, like the Spanish, who have deforested their areas, it has a few benefits for them at a social control level. That means that the destructive power of torrential rains has more of an effect, and therefore, what does that do for a general population? It incentivizes them more to follow along with the herd and be protected by good old king and queen of the nanny state. And certainly that applies to today because the more trees they destroy, the more floods they can create, and the more they can wave the climate change flag in your face and say, hey, we need to do X, Y, Z. All right, everybody. So that is our rapids for the time being. Let me just, I wonder if Rumble is back. Let's just take a look real quick. And while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and pull up an ad and hear from one of our lovely, amazing, fabulous, fantastic sponsors. All right. So, there we go. Let's see. There it is. Share this tab instead. So if you guys haven't already seen, they've got these things called pandemics that happen occasionally. And pandemics might have some problems associated with them. There we go. We live in dangerous and unstable pandemics of international insecurity, shortages, supply chain disruptions, and an economy on the brink. We know we can't simply trust the government to protect us. Now more than ever, everyone needs to be prepared. Being prepared is more than just stockpiling ammo, food, and supplies. Being prepared should also include stockpiling critical prescription medications. That's where the Wellness Company comes in. The Wellness Company's medical emergency kit contains the prescription antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics that you need to keep your family safe. No telehealth call needed. From anthrax to tick bites to COVID and even the bioweapon like the plague, the wellness company's medical emergency kit is exactly what you need to have on hand to be prepared. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/TWC today to order your kit and save an additional 50% with promo code Badlands. That's badlandsmedia.tv/TWC, promo code Badlands. All right, and
apparently Rumble's back up, someone was saying, but
really?
I have yet to confirm that.
I'll keep trying. In the meantime, let's check out this amazing, fabulous sponsor here.
We got Bandmans as a sponsor?
Yeah, you guys, I have no idea who these guys are.
Oh man, I use their products on my teeth. They got the
no way.
Yeah, I'll let you
all right. Yeah, keep it quiet. I'm trying to do my thing.
All right.
All right, let's see. We got, have you had enough of big pharma and big toxic ingredients? Ditch the harsh chemicals and embrace nature with us. For too long, we have been hypnotized by big companies into using their chemical slop products. Their clever marketing campaigns and heavy lobbying allow them to use words like natural to describe products that are anything but. Meet the Van Man Company, where we're all about natural organic remedies. Hop in the van and try our famous tallow and honey balm as a daily face and full body moisturizer. Use our miracle tooth power made from ground eggshell and ground cattle bone to remineralize and naturally whiten your teeth.
I use it.
Yeah. I'll say something in a second here. It looks really good. And try our new coconut magnesium deodorant to keep you smelling fresh all day. We got you covered, and we do it all with products sourced naturally from American farms, made in San Diego, California. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/vanman today and get free shipping on all orders over $40. Now, one thing I wanted to mention about the tooth powder thing while we're at it, I'll keep the Van Man thing up, is most toothpaste is unfortunately going to destroy your teeth. And it sounds crazy to say that, but if you search for, go ahead and go to the web right now to confirm what I'm saying. Search for the effect of glycerin on your teeth and the remineralization of your teeth. They have known for a long time that when you add glycerin to tooth products, it prevents your body's natural calcium ions from re-strengthening your teeth. So if you've been brushing your teeth like a good little boy and girl for many years and it's got glycerin on your teeth and you're wondering like, man, why the hell are my teeth having all these issues? It's by design, most likely. They don't want your teeth to be remineralized properly. And if you actually get good, healthy toothpaste, you can do what nature would always recommend doing, which is remineralize your teeth. So there you go. All right. Let's get into some features.
So our first feature comes by way of Vigilant News, the most intrepid independent news outlet out there today. So we reported earlier this year, just a couple months ago, really, that Alexander Soros, the 38-year-old son of George Soros, has now ascended to that lofty perch of chair of the board of directors for the Open Society Foundations and all of its various countless surrogate institutions that pretty much kind of run the Democrat Party in a way. We could get into all the ways that happens, but it's very kind of detailed thing. But there's a shadow network of NGOs that kind of they scout for candidates. They support them. They fund different initiatives. It's a whole network. So now Alexander Soros is filling in his father's shoes as the new, I guess, general supervillain to conservatives everywhere that George Soros has always been. Well, most recently, he's been hard at work making multiple trips to the White House, of course, which we've also reported on, but he is also inserting himself into Ukraine. So this comes from the article. This past weekend, Alexander Soros, the heir apparent to George Soros' Open Society Foundations, traveled to Kyiv to once again affirm his backing for the Zelensky government as Ukraine's largest independent financer. Saturday in Kiev, the 38-year-old Alexander Soros attended a meeting with First Lady Olena Zelenska and subsequently joined President Zelensky at a meeting to discuss the tens of thousands of Ukrainian children who are presently residing in territory occupied by Russia. So, gall darn, there sure is a lot of interest in Ukrainian children these days, isn't there? I mean, that's probably nothing to think too much about. The Soros heir announced a partnership with the Open Society Foundation and contributed $1 million to the charities that was started by the First Lady Zelenska during his journey. The influence empire of George Soros has become extensively entrenched in Ukraine since the collapse of the Soviet Union. In 1990, it established the International Renaissance Foundation, or the IRF, in Kiev. According to the Soros Network, for over 3 decades, the IRF has been the, quote, largest independent funder of Ukraine's vibrant array of civil society and citizen groups. So basically a private billionaire institution kind of shaping the country in its image. Not a big deal. The Open Society has awarded grants totaling more than $230 million to organizations in Ukraine over just the last decade, with a particular emphasis on the media and education systems. In 2015, the organization assisted in the establishment of the National Public Broadcasting Company of Ukraine. If you recall, Zelensky also decided to install the artist, I guess you could call her, Marina Abramovic, as an ambassador to rebuild the school systems in Ukraine, of all things, because she's obviously an expert on school systems. It's like they're trying to assemble a dream team of just conservative conspiracy world's like greatest supervillains. Right. Quote, the foundation has supported the development of independent media outlets, which is hilarious, in Ukraine, and has supported a range of fact-checking initiatives and other efforts to counter disinformation and promote an informed public debate, Open Society said last month. And if what they consider independent media in the U.S. is any indication, what they mean more specifically is media that supports and acts as sort of a propaganda machine for the globalist agendas that the Open Society Foundations kind of further. Mm-hmm. The Soros empire has maintained a long-standing stance in favor of Ukraine's ascension to the European Union. George Soros, in particular, acknowledged having significantly contributed to the 2014 Euromaidan protests, which resulted in the overthrow of the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych via a coup d'etat due to the former leader's refusal to entirely sever relations with Russia in favor of the EU.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't like peaceful transitions of power or something. I'm kind of confused.
Unless it's a Western-friendly kind of stooge. I know most of our audience is already well aware, but as a refresher of what happened in 2014 was basically another U.S.-sponsored regime change, taking a Russia-friendly president in Yanukovych and installing a pro-West figurehead instead. It's part of this greater global war between NATO and BRICS. And of course, that action swiftly prompted Putin to invade Crimea. They try to act like it's just because he's a wild dog, not because they were literally like committing acts of war against him in a sense. So yeah, the U.S. has been guilty of regime change the world over. A lot of leftists will concede that this is the case in certain situations, but then totally overlook the Maidan coup as just another one of those because their team said it was a good thing. So it's laughable, but I digress. Now, this next bit kind of hints at the most important part of all of this. In addition to the Open Society, prominent Wall Street financial institutions, including BlackRock and JP Morgan, are reportedly preparing to, quote, mobilize capital from private and public sector investors towards rebuilding the Ukrainian economy in anticipation of a lucrative windfall when post-conflict reconstruction endeavors commence. Already more than a year ago, President Zelensky asserted that the cost of reconstructing his nation would exceed $1 trillion.
Oh my God.
So
these people.
Some of the more discerning names in independent media have suggested that there hasn't really been a just war since World War II. Of course, there's plenty of reason to be suspicious of certain aspects of that war as well. But in the last century or so, whenever a major war breaks out, specifically a war that the West decides to get involved in, whether it's directly or indirectly, a distinct pattern kind of emerges. First, we're bombarded with propaganda, usually showing all kinds of atrocities, and rhetoric meant to kind of ignite a righteous indignation in the public. Well, of course, while key context is just completely ignored. Second, our tax dollars inevitably fund a number of civilian casualties, always is the case, in whichever region the given conflict happens to be occurring in at the time. Third, once the military-industrial complex has made sufficient cash, the media begins to shift its reporting from high-intensity war propaganda to eventually a more balanced perspective, and then inevitably, when the public has reached a point where the anti-war rhetoric is palpable, the media starts to subtly become critical of the war that they, completely, like they were the engine that fueled the public support in the beginning of. So they do it so subtly, so slyly. We're seeing that with Ukraine. And of course, we'd be remiss not to mention the fourth phase, where all these big money vultures start circling the war-torn region and eventually rake in extremely lucrative contracts of rebuilding what was lost. So this is obviously what's happening here in Ukraine, and you can bet your sweet tuchus it's going to be the exact same scenario in Gaza.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. $1 trillion. That's incredible. Somebody was talking to us, Timothy Shea, I believe, about a region of Benelux that was going to be turned
Benelux region.
But that's not anywhere near Ukraine, if I remember correctly, right?
It's in the Belgian, Luxembourg, Netherlands region. So kind of where the Dutch farmers are doing their whole thing.
Right.
He said that's the big real reason behind the Dutch farmer uprising is that they want to build the smart city, like flagship smart city in the Benelux region.
Wow, what a scam. My God. Trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there's that news. Let's get into another one here. We got, let's see. There's my. So we got the IRS expansion led to increase in prosecutions, to nobody's surprise. This was, if everybody remembers, what was this, like 2 years ago now? There was a large increase in the amount of funding that was going to be going towards the IRS. And as usual, they were like, oh, we're not going to use this money to go after conservatives or anything like that. Well, it turns out that's not necessarily the case, although it might not just be conservatives. I'm sure they're going after a lot of different people. Additional staffing and post-pandemic focus on tax fraud have led to the Internal Revenue Service and its U.S. Sentencing Commission prosecuting 53% more tax offenders in the past 2 years, according to a December report from Scolario. According to its research, in a state-by-state breakdown, those attempting fraud against the IRS in the states of Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Wyoming had the greatest chance of getting caught. I don't care for everybody who's got those Wyoming member corporation or LLCs and things like this. But according to Scolario's research, to be in the IRS crosshairs, you must make some serious money. The IRS suggests that approximately 75% of tax fraud is committed mainly by individuals in the middle income range. The Scolario data team shared in a written statement to the Epoch Times. However, the highest incidence of evasion is observed among the wealthiest 5%, with an income of at least $200,000. In this elite group, taxpayers hide more than 20% of their income from tax authorities. Scolario has made its mark as an online college scholarship cloud platform and has recently gotten involved in the data search business. The report comes as some taxpayers have been concerned about the purpose of the Biden administration's plan to add 30,000 IRS employees over the next 2 years as part of an $80 billion funding mandate from the Inflation Reduction Act passed in summer of 2022. That is such a massive amount of money for basically hiring a bunch of accountants. In my mind, it's like we're getting to the point where we're about to transition into this whole great reset, you own nothing and be happy economy. And I believe what they're going to do is they're going to totally restructure the tax system. So the way the tax system currently works is there's loopholes everywhere. And frankly, I know enough about how that works where I wonder what it exactly is they did to get that these guys were doing tax evasion, because there's so many like legit ways to pay as little taxes as possible, we'll say, that it's like, what happened? But one of the things that is interesting is that a lot of business owners, they're so busy doing stuff, they hire people to set up their books for them. lawyers, accountants, things like this. You think you're getting a good deal because you've dropped, 5, 10, 20, 100,000 on the barrelhead. But there's, unless you can vet the quality of work, you don't necessarily know. But to be sure, there are ways of limiting your taxable income, and those methods are the ones that the cabal uses. But what I think they're going to do is they're going to get rid of all those loopholes, and we're going to have a climate kind of tax system, where if you're in the elite, where you're actually helping to fight climate change and doing other various things for the globe, for the globalists, you'll be in a totally different class, where it's totally justified to basically commit massive amounts of tax evasion as compared to the general population.
So you think that your social credit score is going to directly correlate to how much taxes you're expected to pay?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I haven't seen anything. This is just my speculation based on, some things I've seen, not direct documents, but there's enough. If we look at the way the climate cult already operates, they've already got a 2-tiered, rules for me, not for the type of the system. And, the problem with the current system is that with the internet and people learning all these things, the loopholes that were previously serving them with almost complete anonymity and without anybody getting in on it and getting the deal are now going to be are now going to be a lot easier for people to access. I mean, if my dumb ass can go on the internet and find ways to create tax structures that greatly reduce tax income, then surely anybody can do it. So initially, the concern was that the additional IRS employees would target independent contractors and small business owners. But Robert Nassau, a law professor and director of the Low-Income Taxpayer Clinic at Syracuse University, told the Epoch Times that making less than honest claims in tax forms will still get you in trouble no matter what your income level. Yeah, again, there are if you know how to do this right, there's no reason to lie on a tax form at all. You just have to know how to play the game, and there are ways to do it. And frankly, I've been thinking about spinning up a business specifically how to do that, because one of the things I discovered recently is that there are a lot of business owners that do not have good tax planning, and and we got, I know, right? We got an
interloper.
Yeah, an interloper. The dog's coming here. Hey, Albert. All right, come on, buddy. Just don't unplug anything. All right. Okay, so let me just spin this up here. According to a November press release from the IRS, its criminal investigation team initiated over 2,500 criminal investigations, getting 90% conviction rate on cases accepted for prosecution. Oh, you don't say. Well, it's kind of easy to do when it's almost impossible to win a defense as somebody who's trying to argue all sorts of different ways to do taxing. There's a really great book called The Freedom from Government. I can't remember the author, but he talks about all sorts of ways you can, avoid getting license plates, driver's licenses, paying taxes. And technically on the books that is actually the case. The tax code in the laws, and then the tax law and then the tax code do have divergencies, but the tax code is what's enforced. And we have a color of law system. We don't have a real legal system where if you do your homework and you actually know how to argue properly, your case will win on its merits. That's not the way it works. So you got to be really careful and know how to play the game. All right, so there's that. What else do you got for us?
Are you done?
Yeah.
All right. So Mitt Romney, there's actually 3 articles we'll go through here, but to start, let's focus on this headline I want to lead with. It comes by way of the USA Today. The headline reads, Mitt Romney says he doesn't see any evidence to authorize Joe Biden impeachment inquiry. Well, don't you worry, Romney. Vigilant News has got your back.
Right.
We'll do all the heavy lifting here, and you just worry about being a total stooge for the Western establishment forces and traitor to America while you're at it. So here's what the USA Today article says. Senator Mitt Romney of Utah threw cold water on House Republicans' impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden, saying he does not, quote, see any evidence that the president's actions warrant his removal from office. Romney, who has long criticized the GOP's direction, meaning he doesn't like the fact that populists have kind of taken over the party. Things were much easier for the likes of Mitt Romney when it was just one big uniparty passing the torch back and forth endlessly and achieving nothing. aside from the slow erosion of everything that America once stood for. So Romney, who has long criticized the GOP's direction, said in an interview on NBC's Meet the Press that House Republicans, quote, ought to have some evidence of wrongdoing before opening an impeachment inquiry. So far, there's nothing of that nature that's been provided, Romney said. Were he a member in the House, he added he would vote against the inquiry. So maybe it's just that Mitt Romney can't read. That because the evidence has been blasted by multiple outlets for 3 years now, particularly recently when an intrepid independent outlet, Vigilant News, put out all the evidence you could ask for. So here's an example. I provide a couple articles. First, this one, at least 6 suspicious activity reports were lodged by banks with Joe Biden's residence listed, according to Senator. Of course, that senator is Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, a man who has been investigating the Bidens for years now, alongside Chuck Grassley. So as per this article, Thursday night, as the ranking Republican on the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, Johnson disclosed to John Solomon's outfit, Just the News, that suspicious activity reports, or SARS, documented transactions totaling approximately $12 million over multiple years, with a portion of those funds traversing Joe Biden's residence in Wilmington, Delaware, where he had granted permission for his son to reside. Johnson stated that Joe Biden would have undoubtedly detected his son's use of his residence as a business and banking address, if only by observing the mail that arrived at that address. Further, he stated that there are ample reasons the House impeachment investigators to suspect Joe Biden of collusion in his son's international dealings. Next week, the House will consider whether to formally authorize an impeachment investigation, and that'll be Wednesday, I believe. Quote, there'd be so much activity coming into his address, in this case, Hunter Biden's businesses, that he obviously would have to be aware, Johnson claimed. Quote, so again, I just use the word obvious. It has been so obvious for so long that Biden Inc. is a corrupt enterprise and that this president is corrupt, that he is compromised. And he fully was aware of this, that he fully benefited from it. The members of his family benefited from all these millions of dollars flowing in from countries that are adversarial to America, he added. A few hours prior to the unsealing of a 9-count indictment against Hunter Biden in federal court in California by special counsel David Weiss, Johnson made this revelation. The indictment accuses Biden of engaging in a years-long tax evasion scheme, wherein he avoided $1.4 million in federal taxes on millions in foreign incomes originating from countries like China, Ukraine, and Romania. Johnson stated that his team has been assisting House impeachment investigators and will provide the SAR, Suspicious Activity Report, derived information regarding Joe Biden's residence. So inquirers from Congress claim they have not identified over 150 suspicious activity reports that have been lodged involving Biden family businesses and associates for nearly a decade. While Hunter Biden has faced charges related to firearms and taxes, it is noteworthy that neither he nor his father have ever faced formal accusations in court regarding money laundering or human trafficking even. However, IRS witnesses have testified before Congress that concerns about a foreign human trafficking operation is what prompted the investigation into Hunter Biden to begin with.
Did you see that tweet that I think John put out about like $690,000 was spent on prostitutes over 1 year, something like that?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
no, I didn't see that.
Just to confirm what you just said.
Well, so while they may not yet, this may not be conclusive evidence yet, I'd say 150 suspicious activity reports are certainly supporting evidence. So take note of that, Mitt Romney. It gets worse. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, that is FinCEN, states that a suspicious activity notification is submitted, quote, to report known or suspected violations of law or suspicious activity observed by financial institutions subject to the regulations of Bank Secrecy Act. Prior to the September 2020 presidential election, it was reported that Senate committee chaired by Grassley and Johnson had obtained suspicious activity reports detailing concerns raised by FinCEN regarding a number of foreign transactions involving companies connected to Hunter Biden. So get a load of this, Mitt Romney. The Daily Mail had previously reported that it had reviewed the suspicious activity reports issued by the Treasury Department. The suspicious activity reports allegedly indicate that payments from Hunter Biden's personal and business accounts were monitored as late as December 2019, and that payments from those accounts were linked to a, quote, Eastern European prostitution ring. So that's probably what he is talking about. Wells Fargo identified 25 individuals associated with the foreign prostitution operation and approximately $7 million in suspicious transactions, including checks from Hunter Biden that, quote, could have been forged to conceal his payments to prostitutes from his business account, as reported by Daily Mail. So not just some, alternative, independent, conspiracy-minded media outlet. It's coming from Daily Mail. And the fun doesn't end at Eastern European prostitution rings. We have another story here coming also from Vigilant News. Headline is $24 million from foreign nationals. House Republicans officialize impeachment inquiry into Biden. Issue a resolution prior to the scheduled vote. So last week, a Representative Kelly Armstrong of North Dakota introduced a 14-page resolution endorsing the impeachment inquiry. A portion of the resolution reads as follows, quote, directing certain committees to continue their ongoing investigations as part of the existing House of Representatives inquiry into whether sufficient grounds exist for the House Representatives to exercise its constitutional power to impeach Joseph Biden, President of the United States of America, and for other purposes. So that's part of the resolution. She later released a statement where she said, quote, it's time for the House to take the next step in the Biden impeachment investigation and adopt an impeachment inquiry resolution. The White House and multiple witnesses have repeatedly refused to cooperate with the investigation and have rejected subpoenas. If there's nothing to hide, then they wouldn't have done that, right? Mm-hmm. Despite this refusal, the investigation has uncovered alarming details that demand further scrutiny. Quote, the Biden family and associates received more than $24 million from foreign nationals. Joe Biden received $200,000 from his brother James Biden the same day that James received a $200,000 loan from a failing rural hospital operator. Joe Biden also received $40,000 in laundered Chinese money from his brother and sister-in-law. It's become clear that this is all from her statement, by the way. It's become clear that the Biden family sold influence around the world using Joe Biden's name as the product. An investigation in any jurisdiction around the country would move forward if it had these facts. A vote on the impeachment inquiry puts the House in the best position to prevail in court and uncover the truth. I mean, I don't know what kind of evidence Romney requires, but it doesn't get any more cut and dry than bank records of the Bidens receiving $24 million from foreign nationals. And that is the definition of influence peddling, and no president should be engaged in that. So the vote is likely to take place this Wednesday, folks. Stay vigilant. We'll see what happens next.
All right. Wow. Well, maybe Mitt Romney should tune into Vigilant News here, and he gets a few tips on what's actually going on.
Pretty sure all Mitt Romney does is whatever the hell he's told. So
yeah. Good old Mitt. All right. Well, let's get to our last one here. Another person who's of upstanding character and never lies at all, Al Gore. Coming out of Modernity News, Al Gore says, people having access to non-mainstream information threatens democracy. This is one of these few clips where they kind of say the silent part out loud, as they say. So this is a clip from COP28. We'll go ahead and play it, and then we'll do some analysis.
To one based on broadcasting and then moving on to the internet and to social media has disrupted the balances that used to exist that made representative democracy work much better. Because a free self-governing people rely on a shared base of knowledge, that serves as a basis for reasoning together collectively. But if you have social media that is dominated by algorithms that pull people down these rabbit holes that are a bit like pitcher plants, these algorithms, they are the digital equivalent of AR-15s. They ought to be banned. They really ought to be banned. It's an abuse of the public forum. But when people are pulled down these rabbit holes, you know what's at the bottom of the rabbit hole? That's where the echo chamber is. And if you spend too much time in the echo chamber, what's weaponized is another form of AI, not artificial intelligence, artificial insanity. I'm serious.
Artificial insanity. Artificial insanity. All right. So, I mean, on the surface, that, artificial insanity, he makes the association of algorithms to AR-15s, which is obviously ludicrous. But, see through the smokescreen, when he says algorithms, what he's doing is he's pointing to digital assets or programs that these social media companies use to share content. And there's this, I've heard Tim Pool, I've heard various other, Con Inc. people talk about it as like, well, the algorithms to blame for this stuff. And all the algorithms designed to do is just feed people whatever is going to get the most clicks. And because of that, we got all these weird distortions. So the argument is, well, because they're just trying to make as much money as humanly possible and get as many eyes on things as possible, all sorts of crazy stuff gets amplified, and then that artificially makes people think that various trends or something like that is having a greater influence than it does. And maybe that's the case in some instances, but when you peel back the smoke screen, you got to ask yourself, well, who came up with these algorithms, and what are these algorithms really doing? Well, if you look at all the use of these algorithms, they conveniently, they show you stuff that's popular, but they always leave out the things that are damaging to the greater narrative. Or if they do promote something that is damaging to the narrative, it's always in a way that provides people like this guy the justification he needs, or the globalists the justification they need to say, oh, you really got to rein in those algorithms. So when they say algorithms, that's a euphemism for freedom of speech, for your ability to access information in a free and open way. And one thing I want to back up in the beginning, this part in the beginning, he's saying something I really want to emphasize. So here we go.
To one based on broadcasting and then moving on to the internet and to social media has disrupted the balances that used to exist that made representative democracy work much better.
The balances that used to exist that made representative government work better. So what is he saying there? Well, when you have a democracy or representative government, at least on the surface, you're giving the people an opportunity to contribute. So there are all these decisions that have to happen. Like, I'm going to use an example of like a bridge. Let's say you're living in a town and we're trying to figure out where the best place to build a bridge is, who should build a bridge, what type of bridge should we build, the considerations around the bridge, like how's the environment going to be impacted, how are people's businesses or homes going to be impacted, eminent domain, is that going to be needed, all these type of critical issues. Well, in a free and open, truly free society, what happens is the people have to gather as much information as possible, use critical thinking and discernment to identify the information that's accurate and true, and then based on that foundation of true knowledge, try to make decisions that are best for everybody. And specifically, not just best for everybody, but ones that honor everybody's rights. Because we live in a pure democracy says that, well, if a whole bunch of people sit around and decide we're going to blow the town up and murder everybody, we can do it because we voted on it and it's a popular assent and we're good. But we don't live in a pure democracy. We live in a representative government, and specifically, we live in a republic. And all those fancy words aside, what it's supposed to mean is that individuals have rights, and the individual's rights, God-given rights, namely, and most importantly, cannot be taken away just because a whole bunch of people agreed and sat down and decided to do something. So the critical thing when it comes to real government, especially democracy, and especially representative government, is that the truth, which is harvested out of reality by critical thinkers and people who know how to actually discern properly, and then use that truth to make good quality decisions that are beneficial for everybody, that's what needs to happen. Well, what he said earlier is there are mechanisms in the old way that are being disrupted. And what the euphemism there is that, well, in a country, in a population that does not know how to think critically, where the reality that they're trying to apprehend to see what kind of decisions they need to make is filtered and distorted because of a propaganda machine, then the people don't actually make decisions on their own merits. The people are only making decisions on whatever they've been spoon-fed. And that's the reason they love democracy. Because when you want, basically what it is like, well, hey, we're not making the decisions, everybody. It's the people that are making the decisions. What they don't tell you is that they've used a sophisticated and trillion-dollar machine of propaganda to condition what everybody thinks, values, and decides is going to happen. And that way, they can get people to do anything, like justify murder, like justify all sorts of crazy stuff. So what he's referring to is that these old systems that have been propagandizing the people who were never properly taught how to think critically, at least in the mass majority of cases, are breaking down. Now, is that a breakdown in a good way? Some people are like, oh, well, the internet, they didn't anticipate the power of the internet, and this is freeing the people. And I think that's true to a certain extent. But I also don't think they're that stupid. I think they knew exactly what the internet was going to do, and they had created all sorts of sophisticated propaganda systems. Now you don't need to turn on CBS News and watch Walter Cronkite tell you about what's going on in Vietnam or the Iran-Contra affair or something like that. You get it right on your TV, on your social media. And the algorithm is the thing that's shaping your perception of the world in a very sophisticated way that feels very personal, all while you think you're thinking these thoughts on your own. So the thing that I wanted to emphasize about the part that he's saying out loud is that we want people to think that they're making their own decisions. We know that people need information to make their own decisions, a knowledge base where people decide together, like he was just saying. But the thing is that knowledge base is curated. To use an analogy, if you've ever heard of Plato's Cave before, Plato's Cave is the idea that, as a matter of fact, I'm going to pull up a little picture of it. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just remember doing this on another show. The Plato's Cave.
Yeah. Yeah, I just was on Courtney Turner's show and we talked about this, so it's fresh in my mind.
Oh, you did it on Vigilant News before, too.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, I used it quite a bit. Let's see here. Yeah, this is a good one here. All right, so this is Plato's Cave. So Plato's Cave it's a kind of like allegory, fable, things like this. And it's the idea that you got these people on the left. Make sure you guys are seeing what I'm seeing here. Yeah, okay. You got these people on the left, and they're sitting behind a wall. All they've ever seen are the cave shadows creating images. And so their reality is highly sculpted. They're siloed. They're in the matrix, so to speak. The only thing they know, think, and believe, and act upon, and make decisions from are the things that are projected on the cave. And then you got these people on the other side of the cave who are holding up the shadow figures and effectively creating the reality for these other people. And so the analogy here is that, well, that's what the mainstream media is. That's what all propaganda is. That's what modern society is. It's not that our people are given the freedom and sovereignty to go out into the world and gather their own information, use their own faculties, and make good decisions. They're being spoon-fed a very narrow view of reality. And because you can basically control the whole thing, if you're the cabal, if you're the people in the middle who are, projecting these shadow puppets, then you can basically guarantee a certain outcome, at least to a certain extent. And so that's what he's kind of referring to. And so the question is he talking about really getting, taking these algorithms away and giving people the freedom they need to make their own good decisions? Well, no, of course not. What he's talking about is altering the internet, having even more of a censorship industrial complex to strengthen that Plato's Cave situation and guarantee the result they want, which is the 15-minute cities, great reset, new world order agenda kind of thing. So there you go.
Ellie in the chat says Hunter's lawyers just filed to dismiss gun charges.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
I didn't really care particularly much about the gun charges. I mean, seems secondary to a lot of these things.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with it, but it's clearly not the biggest elephant in the living room, I guess. All right, everybody. Well, let's go ahead and do the book of the month, and then we'll wrap it up.
We got a section on Israel that we'll also get to.
Oh, you still want to do that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So here we go. The Devil's Chessboard. Subtitle is Alan Dulles, the CIA and the Rise of America's Secret Government. This book, a lot of independent journalists cite this as the book that caused them to believe in the deep state to begin with. So I'll just read from the back here. America's greatest untold story, the United States' rise to world dominance under the guile of Alan Welsh Dulles, the longest-serving director of the CIA. Drawing on revelatory new materials, David Talbot exposes the underside of one of America's most influential figures. The Devil's Chessboard tells the timely, provocative, and gripping story of the rise of the national security state and the battle for America's soul. And it's a beefy tome. I mean, this thing is humongous. It's like a phone book. It's almost 700 pages of information. There's a lot of photographs included in here, and it even takes us up to today. A lot of people say that the day that JFK was shot was the day that the cabal and the deep state really stepped into power in a very public way.
Mm-hmm. Great book. I haven't had the chance to read it, but it looks like it's a fascinating resource. All right, so let's get into the other story you wanted to cover.
Yeah. So we've seen a lot of horrific images, videos, and stories regarding the kind of things that the acts of violence committed by Hamas. It goes without saying that these actions are reprehensible. But as long as we're calling out reprehensible behavior, we should really take a critical look at some of the forces operating within Israel. I want to remind everybody that it's my stance. I think Justin and I are in agreement here that America should not be providing any money or bombs to Israel. It's especially the way the country is right now. We just can't do it and shouldn't be doing it. There's a lot of pro-Israel propaganda in Con Inc. A lot of our favorite outlets are reporting extremely one-sidedly on the whole situation. It's like we've been so radicalized by this us versus them kind of mentality that we'll overlook atrocities as they're being committed so long as it's our team that's in favor of them. But is Israel really your team? That's, I mean, as with any country, there's a whole multitude of different people there. But, you know, there are also some nefarious actors there as well. And it's like a lot of these Con Inc. outlets are just completely ignoring that fact. As far as I can tell, the general stance by Christian conservatives on Israel is fueled by its fulfillment of end times prophecy. But I'd ask you, do you think that the military-industrial complex and the other nefarious actors in this world wouldn't use that against you? So I'm not here to argue in favor one way or the other of either side of this. I'm on the side of my tax dollars not going to the ceaseless murder and, quite frankly, the genocide taking place in Gaza presently. Anyway, the point we wanted to make here is that the sad reality of a lot of Christian Zionists, Christian conservatives, you know, they extend all these prayers to a people who completely hate them. And that's fine. That's what spirituality is all about. But do our tax dollars need to go there too? That's something totally different. And you know, it's not just like here in America, Israel isn't a united population. There's a difference between the Orthodoxy and Zionists, for example. There are many walks of life there as there are here. But it is an undeniable fact that there is a bitter contempt for Christianity that exists in Israel. And, you know, there are certain people out there who are kind of deluded and just completely ignore this fact. So we're going to show a few videos that might upset some of you. I want to say that I know plenty of Orthodox Jews who do not engage in this kind of behavior. But it's not just, you know, there's multiple groups, as we said. So this is how some of the folks in Israel conduct themselves towards Christians. And did you want to say anything before we start showing these videos?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what you said, which is, you know, usually when we talk about anything that's hyper controversial, this might be the most controversial topic that we could possibly talk about, or anyone for that matter. There's a kind of irrational reactionariness, which is like, oh, well, he's commenting about this little subset, therefore it must be everybody he's commenting on, or we're commenting on. And we're not doing that. We are trying to showcase some videos and direct evidence of some things that some Christian conservatives who support Israel blindly do not know about and do not take the time to investigate. Does that mean that all Jews share these opinions? No, of course not. There's all sorts of Jewish people. I happen to know many. They do not hold the opinions that we're about to hear now. And I just want to emphasize that. So when we say, hey, we're going to present these to you, we're not in any way, shape, or form saying that all Jews can be lumped into this category and therefore we should treat them, with contempt or anything like that. We're just saying that this is an opinion that if we really want to get to know the truth and we want to try to do the right thing, we should learn the truth as much as humanly possible and take a full and deep approach to that investigation. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
So without further ado, some videos that you're not going to see on the Gateway Pundit or Fox News or, any of the other sites that Christian conservatives tend to flock to.
Any preamble to?
Well, this one is a woman. She's a mission worker. She's a Christian and she's in Israel. And, she's trying to minister to people, but just look how she is treated as she's recording this video.
The Messianic Jewish Alliance is gathered, and believers from all over Israel are gathered in the pavilion to lift up the name of Yeshua. And that's not really welcomed by a lot of people here in Israel. That's not really understood by the ultra-Orthodox community. And we love our Jewish brothers and sisters. We love these people. But the reality is that they don't see Yeshua as the Messiah. A couple years ago, we were here in the same place, and they yelled, "Yeshua is dead," and different things in Hebrew. There was tear gas. I'm grateful that tonight there hasn't been any overt violence. People are yelling. People are. And so I just want to ask you, if you would join me in praying for there to be restoration in Israel. The Messianic Jewish Alliance is gathered and believe.
Any commentary you want to have before I jump in?
I mean, I think it speaks for itself. So our greatest ally, right, guys?
Yeah, I mean, this is like they're heckling. Like what it looks like happens is I don't know if they notice right away, but there's almost like a rallying call, like somebody saying, "Hey, over here," and then all of a sudden it's like a troop of hecklers come, to heckle, and
maybe that's just an isolated incident, and they're just some misled youth. But let's keep watching these videos and see what they really think about Christians.
This one's a little hard to excuse away. All right, here we go.
You're gonna go to jail because the police here, 99% conviction rate. Shut up.
We don't do anything illegal. You cannot take us to jail. If you are not involved, please go. Shalom, my friend. We bless you.
You're in my country.
You come to the United States, you can say whatever you want to say. That is a free world, yes?
You're not in the United States. You're in Israel.
I understand.
You cannot say whatever you want to say here.
Yes, you can. It's legal. It is legal to preach about Yeshua. We preach at Damascus Gate. The police said it's okay. We preach at Jaffa Gate. The police say it's okay. Please stop. I respect you. Respect me. Huh? That is the right thing. Are you Jewish? Do you want to honor God? That is the godly thing to do. We respect one another.
The godly thing to do is to kill you.
The godly thing is to kill me.
That's right.
Yes?
That's what the Torah says.
The Torah says to kill us.
The Torah says that people who worship idols such as yourself, when there is a Sanhedrin,
to kill us.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what the Torah says.
So we know how the Jewish people feel about Christians, yes? That you discriminate against Christians.
Christians are idol worshippers.
You discriminate against Christians.
The Torah says that Christianity is idol worship.
There you go.
That's one thing that a lot of the Christian Zionists should consider while they get out their checkbooks to send endless amounts of money to Israel.
Mm-hmm. And here's one here. Okay.
You have 6 billion idol worshippers who makes God angry every second of their life. Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Tibet, Nepal, Thailand. So many. India alone is 500 million. China is 2 billion. So many. 2 billion Christians, which are idol worshippers. between Chinese, Indian, Hindus, Buddhists, and Christian, at least 6.5 billion people are idol worshippers that, according to the Torah, do not have the right to live. Idol worshipper goy, it's death penalty. Not only Jews, even a goy who bow down to an idol, who believe in JC, deserve death penalty. You have.
So, I just want to emphasize again here, we're not saying that all Jews believe this. We're not saying that you shouldn't support people who are suffering or have been attacked or all that kind of stuff. But we have to be able to discern between people who are, in my opinion, being immoral. And from my perspective, from a spiritual perspective, I do not think God has one rules for one people and one rules for another people. And this whole idea of a chosen people has been weaponized against humanity for a very long time. If you look at all throughout history, and this idea of the chosen people narrative and how that is used to do all sorts of things, it's usually not a good thing. It's not for peace and tolerance and unity, and let's all just try to live happy and peace and respect each other. So any comments on that?
That's right. Well, I mean, we see all of these terrible things, in all of these various outlets that we pull from on a daily basis about how awful the Muslims are and the things that they say, but total crickets about stuff like this.
Right.
Why is that?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So, for me, it's like, I don't care who you are, whether you're Jewish, Christian, whatever. If you're advocating for violating people's rights, then that's a problem, and I'm going to try to stop you. It's that simple. All right, here we go. Here's another good one.
So that's about the iron here. The last verse also very, very, in a certain way, the most forceful verse in the whole Bible. It says, happy is the one that takes the infants of Babel and of Edom and smashes them on the rock, just like they did to us. The last, and this is what we say before benching, right? That's the end of this. That the ultimate revenge again are going, innocent infants. Happy is the one that takes the infants and smashes them and kills them on the rock. And then we bless Hashem for the food that we ate. Some of all of the letters of the alphabet from Aleph to Tav equal Hakol Emet. Emet is called the beginning, the middle, and the end of the entire alphabet. So this chapter, it's Gemati, the whole chapter is Hakol, everything is true. From the very beginning of our feeling, sitting in Gore on the rivers of Babylon, until the final emotion that is expressed in this chapter of happy is you that takes the infants of Babel and smashes them on the rock, just as they did to us. How many letters? We said there are 80.
Okay.
Well, I guess I've never smashed an infant upon the rock, but I just have a feeling it wouldn't make me that happy. But, if it makes him happy, let's send him all the money we can muster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, come on now. All right. And then, oh boy, there's this guy.
Yeah, this guy is great. He really puts it into perspective.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Torah bro.
Once Edom is destroyed, along with its false Messiah, then and only then can Israel rise, and Messiah ben David can gather the exiles and build the third temple. Erev Shabbat is the end of the 6th millennia, which we are currently in. And Edom must be destroyed, and the false Messiah must be completely exposed. And once that happens, then the real one actually comes. And then Jerusalem can be built properly. When this one falls, the other rises. Israel and Rome can never stand at the same time, which is why I told you, why did he hang on Friday Eve, Erev Shabbat? Because that is to show you that at the end of days, Christianity will be no more. And then finally, Israel will rise. Israel and Rome can never stand at the same time. They are opposites. Jacob, Israel, and Esav, Edom. And when the false Messiah falls, the other, the real Messiah, will rise. It is already known that Israel's greatest enemy is Edom. And God turned things around so that the Netzer Nitav, the despicable descendants, and the filth of wicked Esav, who is their God, would be buried in Israel, in Jerusalem. This is why Jesus was actually buried in Jerusalem. The reason for this is that even the enemies of God should pray for the city of God. which is Jerusalem, where their God, Jesus, was buried. Yes, I said buried, because this causes an evil angel to say amen against his will. You see, this is the fast one that God actually pulled on Satan, when all those who follow Satan think that they're pulling a fast one on God. They sing psalms for the restoration of Jerusalem and the gathering of Israel to Zion, and they have no idea that they are actually praying for the establishment of the holy in the world and the destruction of their very religion. So thank you. We accept all your prayers. The Kalipa over here that is going to be destroyed, the Kalipa, as we said, as I said in my story,
That's the most important part of the whole video right there.
Exactly. I'm going to actually play that.
Yeah,
again,
play it one more time.
if you're supporting, these things blindly, you really need to hear this.
Evil angel to say amen against his will. You see, this is the fast one that God actually pulled on Satan, when all those who follow Satan think that they're pulling a fast one on God. They sing psalms for the restoration of Jerusalem and the gathering of Israel to Zion, and they have no idea that they are actually praying for the establishment of the holy in the world and the destruction of their very religion. So thank you. We accept all your prayers.
Yeah, that is, and for me, that out of all the clips we've seen, and there's a couple more, I think, that is the most damning. And, when I say damning, I don't mean this is proof that, the evil Jews are the ones behind everything. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm saying that Christians are being deceived, especially here in the United States. I went to 2 churches. I'm currently in one right now. And the usual, we have to, just like he said, pray for the restoration of Israel and all these kind of things is openly talked about. We're actively sending I just heard a sermon where they were talking about raising money to send to Israel. So, the question is are they taking the time to understand what that money is going towards and what they're actually supporting? I guarantee you the answer is no. I guarantee you if I show this video to my congregation, most people would be deeply offended that I'd even question their blind and vigilant support or vehement support of something that they have not taken the time to understand. And they have been duped. I'm sorry. This is a situation where people are being duped. So,
and maybe we're wrong, and maybe you can enlighten us as to why this is all acceptable. I mean, it is acceptable that they have the right to believe these things and say these things, but that doesn't mean that we should be funding a war over there. You will not be able to convince me of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, let's consider how else do they feel about Christians? There's another clip where this is at some kind of school or something, Christian missionaries, and how the children are being allowed to treat them.
Wow. Okay.
Go by the children. Shake it, shake it. Excited people here. Why you raise your voice? Raise your voice. Why you raise your voice? You're so good. Why you raise your voice? Let me raise your voice with you. Don't raise your voice. Go. Because you're inside people. Try to understand.
Let us leave.
What inside people?
Yes.
Go. What inside people?
The adults just let this happen.
I mean, these things kids don't do this without, at the very least, some kind of endorsement of what's happening or turning of a blind eye. All right. Well, there you go. There's that clip. And we got the chat back up. So if you
Oh.
guys are in Rumble, watching Rumble, we'd really like to hear your feedback on any of this stuff.
Yeah, we'll probably air this again tomorrow, maybe. I don't know. But one last little thing to cover here is this chart. It's the very last thing in that Telegram thing we put together here. To just take a gander at this. So evangelicals, they have a plus 39 net favorability of Jews. Jews return the favor with a negative 40 favorability rating of evangelical Christians. That really just sums it up right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, folks. It is not a mutual respect. It is not a mutual love situation. I mean, at least in some respects. I know that I used to work for the Gem Hebrew School out in LA. They were wonderful people. We would videotape the rabbi going around giving homeless people food, but there is a contingent of people who don't share those kind of values, and it's just something to consider. Like, why will outlets like Pundit, Breitbart, even Stephen Bannon, just unwavering support for Israel, no discussion about any of these things, just send the money over there? It's like, you're total hypocrites. Well, why not fund Ukraine too? If the Bible said that Ukraine would expand to include Crimea, then would you be okay with sending the money over there and continuing a war that we have no right being in? It's just, there's some hypocrisy that needs to be addressed, I think.
Mm-hmm. At the very least, we got to have a conversation about it. I mean, so yeah, like I like what you said earlier, like maybe we got it wrong. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing here. Maybe there's a piece of this that explains these things. I don't know what it is, but I'm open to it, because I'll be the first one to tell you I'm hardly an expert in all these issues.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know where we're wrong about any of this, because we like to learn, and when we're wrong about something, we'd like to correct that. But what I see here is just something that you're not going to see anywhere else in conservative media. So that's why we're showing it here.
That's right. Yeah, and that's what we're all about: being vigilant. Being vigilant doesn't just mean sharing things that people like to hear and calling it a day. So yeah, that is basically it. Any other comments?
Yes, we're going to be in California here next week.
Yeah. So go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So are we doing an interview?
Not that I know of. We might be able to do some stuff. We're definitely going to be speaking at Time for Free America. That's going to happen on Friday at around 12 p.m. California time. We are also going to live stream the whole event on our Stillness in the Storm channel. So if you go to Rumble and you search for Vigilant News or Stillness in the Storm, you can find I'll put the Rumble up at some point. I don't know, I have to get the information, but we'll have that there. I'll also share on social media. And definitely check out the website, charleswhitfield.org. We're doing a lot of awesome work. I'll just plug it for a minute. I had to have befriended Dr. Charles Whitfield and his wife, Barbara, in 2020. Me, Ryan, American Hypnotist, my wife, we became good friends with them. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2021. But his work, he discovered, ironically enough, through childhood experiences, you can get people to do all sorts of crazy things. And one of the things that can also happen is it causes massive health issues. And he also discovered the way to address these problems, which requires community, which requires bearing your soul, which requires, having people love and trust who really care about you, and giving you a place to share, the contents of your soul, and then you do the same. And believe it or not, it creates massive healing. It literally heals diseases and all sorts of things. So check that out, charleswhitfield.org. And anything else?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching Vigilant News, everybody. We will be back next Monday for a show. No interviews this Sunday. And much love. And again, if you have any comments or corrections or anything about what you've seen today, certainly about our very controversial segment that we had here, we'd really appreciate it. We like to keep an open dialogue for these kind of things. So with that, much love and take care.
Don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video and help this show get on the Rumble leaderboard. Another way you can support Badlands for free is by becoming a Badlander. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv, click Connect from the top menu, then become a Badlander. Once registered, you can download clips from your favorite Badlands shows to share on your social media accounts. You can also print out flyers and stickers that you can hand out at an event. Let's keep growing our community because we are the news now.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.